This will be a tutorial on how to do 4 different types of zombie bites. We will have the theatrical bite as shown here. Then we will have a gorier, not necessarily gory, but more of a rotting look with a bit of blood, which is shown here. And then you will later see our infected bite and my complete gore, torn flesh look. And these are 4 different bites for Halloween or for a film or whatever you want to use them for, really. And they will all be on this video, and you will see how to make them. Starting off with my theatrical bite, we're going to go in with a regular foundation sponge that I have ripped up on the bottom so it looks a bit like Swiss cheese or something. And now that it has a bunch of holes in it, we are going to take my Ben Nye bruise wheel, which I bought on their website, and you can too, I believe. I believe it's still up. I don't know, I've had this for quite a while. And then we are going to go in with the dark red tone on the bruise wheel, and we're going to use that tone to lightly dab on my arm, or wherever you want to put the bite. And we're going to start making that our very light base. Now that we have our base, we're going to go in with the lighter red, which is more of a blood color, and we're going to apply that a little more heavily than we did the previous color and use it to make the skin look a lot more irritated. Then you can take the blue color on the wheel and lightly, or I guess you would heavily apply it to the sponge, but then very lightly and softly dab it onto your arm. And make sure to be very sparing with your use of it. You don't want to paint your whole arm blue. And then you go in with the purple and try to do something similar, except make it more light and around the edges. The blue and purple give more of a bruised and broken capillary look, which is what you want to create sort of a damaged look on your skin. Going in with a normal face paint brush, we are going to take the dark red and we're going to use it to paint on some teeth marks onto our bite. While painting on the teeth marks, make sure to start at the base with by pressing very hard and then lightly and gently move it outward to create your teeth marks. It's okay, and actually kind of a good idea, to start moving more outward on your bruise area to make your teeth, because it'll make the teeth not only a little more visible, but it will also it'll also mix more with other colors we'll be adding later. Then we're going to go in with the lighter red and use it to accent the inner part of the teeth marks, as if they have a bit of blood on them. Now that we have our general base, we're going to put away our bruise wheel, and I'm going to take out my Ben Nye zombie wheel, which you can also get on their website, and I'm pretty sure they still sell it. And you will take it out, and you start by going in with the same brush using the black, and you will use it at the very base and top of your teeth marks to make it look a lot darker and a lot deeper. Now, putting away the brush, we're going to take the same sponge we've been using throughout this video, and we're going to apply the green from the zombie wheel around the edges and very lightly on the top of our bruised area. See, we've created a very pussy and infected look that adds to the zombie bite. Now we will be going in with an actual makeup brush, which is an angle, any kind of thin angle brush, and we're going to use the dark blue from the zombie palette, or zombie wheel. And the reason we're using that instead of the blue from the bruise wheel is because the blue from the zombie wheel is a lot darker and has a much more necromantic look. Forgot the word. Using the blue and this angle brush, we are going to go in and we're going to paint in some darker blue veins. This it's okay if you make them a little too thick or thin or a little too dark or light, because we are going to end up blending them in later, so they are going to be a lot more subtle. They still will be visible, but little details won't be as obvious. With the side of a makeup sponge, possibly the one you were using earlier, we're going to go in and lightly tap on top of the veins we've made to blend them in and make them a little more subtle, as if they're under the skin and not on top of it. And that is the finished product of the first bite, the theatrical bite. Now as we start our second bite, we're going to go in with a big, well, I have a big jug of it, but you can have any amount of it really, of liquid latex, and you're gonna put it into some sort of cup or bowl to hold it in, because it's very difficult to get it directly out of the bottle. So once you have your liquid latex in a bowl, take any sponge that you do not want to reuse, because you will not be able to get the latex out of it. You will take any sponge, any makeup sponge or whatever, and you will use it to put quite a few coats, maybe about 5 or 6, on top of your arm, or wherever you're applying the bite. Now that the latex is applied, you'll take any normal tissue, find the split in the middle if you can, and pull it in half so that the strips you have a much thinner piece, and then cut it or rip it into smaller pieces that you can apply to your arm. Then, while the latex on your arm is still wet, start applying little pieces of the tissue. Just press it down gently, and once it's on, gently, again, add more latex to the top of it so it becomes all saturated in the latex. And you will continue doing this for quite a few coats until you think it's thick enough. Make sure that as you apply your pieces, they are very irregular and don't look extremely linear or organized, because you want it to look very natural and very random. Then we're going to take a pointed sculpting tool, usually used for wax, and we're going to use the sharper end of it to slowly make little slight indentations in our wet latex and tissue while it's still wet to make a teeth mark pattern, kind of like what we did in the other one, but with a bit more structure and shape. take again the Ben Nye zombie wheel, which will probably be your best friend while doing any of these bites. And we are going to start with our angle brush from the last video, but hopefully you've cleaned it in between. And we are going to start by going in with the black and placing it within the little indentations that you made with your sculpting tool. Yes, I know it does look a bit too regular, but don't worry, we are going to blur those out with more colors as this goes on. As our latex dries more, we are going to go in with our darker shade of red from the zombie wheel and dab it around a little less neatly than you did the black, and make it look a little more like irritated, bloody, infected kind of look. You should try to be a little bit light with this color, but of course it's not going to be too faint as you are working on plain latex. Now go in with any foundation that matches your skin tone. I'm using True Match Lumi something in my skin tone. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm going to go in with that and use a normal foundation sponge and completely fill in all of the parts with plain latex. Don't worry if you do cover up the indentations a little bit, they will still be visible after you're done, even if you completely cover them, because there is a texture, and once you're done you can refill them in and you will be able to fix it. And of course make sure to blend out the edges around with your finger or whatever works to make it blend into your actual skin. And now, like I said, you go back in with the black and dark red, whichever you feel you need more. It seems more appropriate to put the red on top and just have the black underneath for me, but you can do whatever you want really, and just re-highlight and fix any problems that may have come about while you were applying your foundation. You're then going to go back in with the same sponge you were using to apply the foundation, or a different one, doesn't really matter, and you rip it up like you did the last one and make a bunch of holes in it. You are then going to go in with the light red, which I for some reason can't seem to find while I was filming this, but you are going to go in with the light red and dab it around the center of your wound and spread it around a little bit. Then, going kind of in reverse of what we did last time, we're going to go in with the darker red and put that over the place where we put the light red in a bit of a more, like a darker coat. And it'll definitely look a lot more irritated and a lot more like some sort of wounded skin. Then using the green from the zombie palette, we're going to start by dabbing around the center and slowly spread it outward while still keeping the red underneath fairly visible, but also spreading it a little bit further along the skin than the red. Then of course more touch-ups with the red and black to make sure the teeth marks are still visible. Then with the yellow, which is personally one of my favorite colors to work with on this palette, we are going to spread it from the edges and slightly outward to the point where it blends with the green, but it also goes out slightly to become its own color and make sort of a pussy, kind of more disgusting appearance around the edges of the wound. Also, if you're a complete idiot like me, make faces into the camera. Going in and doing the same thing we did in the last tutorial, go in with the blue by heavily applying it to the sponge, but dabbing it very scarcely and lightly over the wound itself, mainly centering around the middle, but also moving slightly outward to make the appearance of broken veins. Also, my camera died, so sorry this is weird. Going in with the lighter red from the zombie palette, and I am starting inside the bite wounds and spreading the red in to make it less like a puncture wound and more like an actual bite. Add as much or as little red to this as you want. It depends on the appearance you're going for. Then go in with fake blood, or as I would recommend, specifically blood gel, because it will harden and stay in place. You can dip it and place it inside each little bite puncture, and then spread it inward a little bit, just like we did with the red, to again make it look less like a direct puncture and more like a bit of a sloppy, gross bite. And yes, I am aware that I got a bit of blood outside of the wound itself. That was an accident. At this point, you can basically touch up the rest of your wound with whatever colors you want to make it look however you want. I end up putting a little too much green around it, which kind of blocks out a few of the other colors, but in the end, it really did come out looking a lot more rotten and disgusting, so I really am happy with it in the end. And this is the final product for our rotten styled bite. Like I said, there's a bit too much green on it, but I am still happy with the way it came out. And you can still see some of the blue and the red around the wound itself, so it really isn't too bad. And the latex gives it a really disgusting, coarse feel to it. As we start our third bite, I actually forgot to show it to the camera, but this is spirit gum, just plain normal spirit gum that I'm applying to my arm here in the shape of the bite that I want, because we are going to be using wax for this, so spirit gum would be a good idea. Hard to see, but I have applied in the shape of what I want the bite to be. I then take a normal sponge that, again, I don't plan on reusing, and tap it over the spirit gum to make it tacky, because that's how spirit gum works. I then get out my Ben Nye nose and scar wax, or any other scar wax you really want to use, and I start by making a little worm out of the wax and just kind of roll it over in my hands until it's about the size of the top set of teeth that I plan on pushing into my flesh. Lovely. To apply the scar wax, I start out to where I have left the spirit gum, and I start by gently setting it down on top before I take my wax sculpting tool and press down all the edges except for the edge that I'm going to be making the teeth out of. And I press them down and smear them until they completely blend into my skin. As you see here, if you are to make some sort of mistake, you can always add more wax to it, or go in and fix it with your fingers, or whatever you see fit to do to fix it. As you can see, I'm using my fingers a little more to add in this piece because I want it to be a little more gentle. Then, using the flat side of my sculpting tool, I gently, emphasis on gently, sculpt in the shape of teeth into the wax bits that I have. As you can see, some pieces, or some teeth marks are a little more messed up than others, but it's a bite from a zombie. Do you really expect it to be neat? I then take a can of normal hairspray and spray it over the top of the wax. You could use fixative A if you have some, but I didn't, so I just used hairspray, which, in my opinion, works just as well. We then take out our old friend, the Ben Nye zombie wheel, and we will use it to start painting in the teeth marks. We're going to do something similar to what we did last time and start with the black and a normal paintbrush and start painting into the teeth marks at the very base to make them look a bit deeper. Like the other bites, you don't really have to be super neat with this because you are going to be adding a lot of other colors over it. This is really just meant to deepen the look of the bite marks. And now I go in with my dark red from the zombie wheel, and I slightly mix it and blend it with the black that's already on the bite as I slowly spread it out from where it already is. I can also use it to blend in and color the little bits of the wax inside the teeth marks that haven't gotten colored. Then with the slightly lighter red, we go in and continue to blend the bite marks outward to, again, increase the look that the skin has been dragged out. Now that we finish the inner part of the bite, we are going to rip up another foundation sponge and use it to apply the light red to the outer parts of the wax and bite. this point, you can really quit at any time, depending on how you want the bite to look and how much color you want it to have. But because we're going for a more infected look, we're going to start adding a bunch of colors. You can really do whatever you want. We can then take the darker red and apply it over the top of the wax and the teeth marks themselves, as well as where we've already applied the lighter red. Our skin looks very irritated. We're going to do the same technique with the blue, which involves heavily applying it to the sponge and then lightly tapping it over the paint we already have. This, again, like I've been saying, adds the look of broken veins and capillaries. Then we're going to add green. Now, we're going to add a significantly smaller amount of green than our last bite, but enough to cover the blue so that it doesn't look so messy, and also to go around the edges and create, again, a more infected look. Continuing with the trend of mixing yellow and green, we are going to go in, put the yellow over the green, as well as spread it further outwards to have a more pussy, disgusting look on our bite. Once again with our angle brush, which you may or may not have used to apply the black to the insides of the bite marks, we will be doing what we did in the first tutorial and painting on some veins as a final touch. Also, like before, we'll be using the side of our sponge to lightly tap the tops of our veins to make them look like they're more beneath the skin than on top of it. That makes them look a bit more realistic. And that is our finished infection look for a wax bite. It's sort of like a mix of the first and second bites plus some wax. So it does take techniques from the other two bites that we've shown before, but it really is kind of its own thing because, you know, wax. So if you're wondering why I'm wearing sunglasses, I was having migraine while I made this. Bringing back our friend liquid latex, we are going to be repeating the same steps from the beginning of the second tutorial. This will involve covering your arm or place your bite to with quite a few layers of latex, and then layering it with thin tissue paper. Once the latex has somewhat dried, we are going to be using our Ben Nye bruise wheel for a change, and we are going to use it to apply a light layer of the dark red and the light red over the latex.
Notice how I am smearing the red around the edges, the lighter red specifically, because that will help the colors taper off into the rest of your skin and not just look like they were smeared on there.
With our painted and mostly dried latex and tissue, we are going to start pulling at the center until we've made a small hole in the latex. Then, slowly pulling up and outward, we are going to make the hole much bigger and tear into it a bit more so it looks a bit sloppier and like torn flesh. Going in with the same foundation sponge we used to paint the red on top of the latex, start painting the insides of the flaps so they're not just plain white.
Going in with a normal face paint brush, we take the dark red from the wheel and we will paint the inside of the wound towards the edges. This creates an illusion of depth.
Taking the previously used foundation sponge, use the same red on the inside of the wound, but dab lightly. For turning the Ben Nye zombie wheel, we will be taking the black and the previously used paintbrush and go over the inside of the wound with the black to make it look a lot deeper. You really can add as much or as little black as you want. I added quite a bit here because I preferred it to look a lot darker, but you really can take your own creative license with this. And of course, you can always go in with the same reds used before to touch up the skin or the inside. With Ben Nye Fresh Scab and a normal wax sculpting tool, I'm going to go inside the wound and spread the scab all over to make it look a lot gorier. Spreading underneath the sides flaps of the latex and pushing them down and pulling them back up will allow them to look a lot more like severed skin. The final step of this bite is to take normal blood gel or any other fake blood and spread it and paint it over the previously added fresh scab to give it more of a leaking and dripping effect that makes it look a lot sloppier and more disgusting. Painting with a brush also allows you to be a lot more exact than just spreading on the fresh scab. This lets you be a lot more detailed with whatever you want to do with the blood. And that is the final result of our fourth bite, which was the goriest bite, which is basically just a image of torn flesh, and it really could be used for anything, not just bites. And if you look, the fresh scab did give it a lot of dimension on the inside, whereas the blood made it look a lot more shiny and a little more drippy, like I said. So it really all did come together.